Aloha and welcome to Capital Connection with your host, Senator Angus McKelvey. I'm your moderator, Tom Blackburn Rodriguez. Our guest today is Pamela Tumpap, President of the Maui Chamber of Commerce. The Maui Chamber of Commerce is a nonpartisan, non-sectarian business organization made up of nearly 800 companies on Maui who represent approximately 20,000 employees. And now your host of Capital Connection, Senator Angus McKelvey.
Aloha, everybody.
Aloha, Senator. How are you doing this morning?
We're just grinding away.
I always ask you, have you had your coffee? Have you had your coffee before the show, Senator? Or are you going to be sipping with us as we go along? Well, it's Senator. There's a lot going on right now, and I think we'd like to share.
Well,
it
as
with
always,
listeners.
it's been nonstop, and there's a lot of things going on. I think that the water restrictions and news have been lifted for more areas of Kula and Lahaina. So I guess that will mean that water that's been out of service will be restored, and it's been tested. So it's safe to go ahead and re-engage these different systems. And of course, the other news along that line is that this, of course, means that perhaps there might be a little bit more hope insofar as trying to restore parts of the system without having to completely take everything out because it's all destroyed and redo it from scratch.
Well, I think one of the things that we're hearing from the Maui County Department of Water Supply is reminding people that because water may have stagnated within homes and buildings in these areas, the department recommends customers flush their lines to remove any standing water in plumbing and pipes. And the lines may be simply flushed by opening the valves and letting the faucets run for at least 10 minutes. So we want to recommend that people do that.
Yes, but I mean there are concerns about still in the Lahaina side about the areas where these restrictions are lifted have toxic dust everywhere. But
Right.
That's a whole other discussion that's going on. But it says so that is a good sign forward. But it's not like okay, everybody move back in. There's still a lot of things that are going on that need to be done. There's still a lot of questions out, but it is a good sign moving forward that the totality of destruction doesn't appear to be as complete and total to the water system as some people may have thought.
I think you're thinking maybe lines had melted and there's a whole lot more going on. Now I know businesses, there are restaurants that are reopening, the 808 Cafe, for example, up country. So it is good news. Some other good news we have is that the deadline has been extended for nonprofits and government agencies to seek FEMA funds. The Federal Emergency Management Administration has extended the deadline until October 25th for private nonprofits and government organizations seeking public assistance funding for the recent wildfires on Maui. And according to the administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, he has said that many nonprofits have been deeply involved in disaster response, but they've been too busy helping people of Maui to apply for these federal funds. So this extension gives them a bit more time to seek these, what he calls, vital resources. So if you've been doing something to help out and don't even self-censor, if you think you've been involved in helping out with the disaster, go ahead and apply. You got another couple of weeks to do it, and get your application in right away.
Okay. Other things going on is that we have a open house finally scheduled for the overpass in South Maui. We don't want to forget about that, do we, everybody?
Now this is our favorite agency.
I'm actually glad to see that they're doing this because we called out back in the after session that this needs to happen to demonstrate good faith to the community. And I hope that this will actually be the start of a dialogue with the Kihei community and can result in some type of community-based design for the overpass. The way things have been going, it seems to be, is agencies show up and they say, let's have a public meeting, community meeting, and they're like, this is it. Okay, have a good night. Any questions, you can email us. And that, of course, on the Highness side has caused a lot of issues. But I'm hoping to ensure that the South Maui community gets the involvement and the meaningful participation they deserve, that they will do that.
Well,
so I'm happy that the meeting's taking place. I encourage everybody to show up, and hopefully the DOE will show up and recognize that they need to engage the community and formulate, not just deliver.
Senator, that meeting is going to take place on October 25th, and it's the open house will be from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the school's cafeteria multi-purpose room, Building D, with a presentation at 5 p.m. that will review progress made on the overpass since the September 22nd community open house that was to identify different crossing options. So if you're listening and you have an interest in that, just hail on over there, 4:30 to 6:30 at the school, and that is in Building D. And remember, that's a big campus there, so I hope they have some signs up about how to find Building D.
Yeah, it's pretty. There's only the first part has been built up towards the top. So if you head up, towards the top, you can't miss it. Trust me, it's pretty big.
In other FEMA news, seems to be a FEMA news morning. Today, October the 11th, a FEMA job fair will be held from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Wednesday. That's today at the Lahaina Civic Center. And here's the thing. FEMA has temporary vacancies for multiple positions on Maui and Oahu, starting as 120-day appointments, and they may be extended up to 1 year. You got to be a U.S. citizen, 18 years or older, have a high school diploma or a GED, and FEMA is an equal opportunity employer. So go on up there to the Civic Center and file a job application, because if I know anything about a temporary federal job, it could last for years. All right? So don't let that 120-day thing stop you, because it can be extended up to a year. And Senator, I know one of the things that you really pay a lot of attention to is what students are doing and how they're helping out. What did you think about 100 Hawaii students on Maui undergoing federal disaster response training for youth?
I think that's great. I think that is very great. And we saw in the Lahaina fire disaster how young people pitched in right away with an energy and passion, wanting to be a part and help. And so that kind of training gives them the ability to stand up and get involved and help their community right away. I just hope that as part of the training as we move forward, that they look at pre-positioning some of the necessary materials that they would need in the field. And so, but the training itself is the most critical portion, so that's a good start. And the more we can get our keiki trained up and resilient-minded, whether it's at work, school, or play, it is a good thing. Especially if you saw with the loss of communications, there could be times where young people will be literally cut off. And so if they know what to do and how to organize, it puts them and the community in a better position. So I'm very happy to see that. I look forward next session to really trying to expand that, and also trying to continue to fill the materials that are needed in case such a thing has to stand up, that they can get things to communicate and other support.
Well, this is a national program that's run by FEMA, and it trains volunteers in disaster preparedness and emergency response. So far, more than 100 students from 14 schools statewide have begun the first federal disaster response training program in Hawaii, and that is dated to youth.
No, it's a national program, but as we saw with the CERT program, even though it was stood up and people were trained, it never got off the ground. And so I think for us, even though it's a federal program, we continue. So should it will envisioned. It has the ability is envisioned, and that the people have. It keeps them. It's not just we train one time and then that's it. And so it's a great start, but it's only a start. I guess that's the point I'm trying to point on. But and the more kids we can train, the safer our communities will be in the case of a disaster.
Well, Senator, we have Pam Toompop, who's just called in, is going to be our guest this morning. And, of course, Pam is the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce. Now, I've known her long enough. Her name is actually Pamela Toompop. I've known her long enough to call her Pam. So she is the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, that's representing nearly 800 companies on Maui, which represents approximately 20,000 employees. So when they speak, people listen. Pam, are you there? Good morning, Pam. Can you hear me? Hello, Pam. Are you there?
I am. Aloha and good morning.
All right, there you are. Good morning. How are you doing?
I am excellent. How are you today?
Well, I think we're all set up. We want to have a good conversation with you. Angus McKelvey, Senator McKelvey is on the line. Senator, are you on the line also?
I am here, yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to let you two talk to each other then.
Well, don't go anywhere, Tom. You know, we like the way you dive in with some questions. Aloha, Pam. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Oh,
We really
thank
appreciate
you.
you being
Aloha.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, it's the Maui Chamber of Commerce. Basically, you know, I'm sure everybody knows of the chamber, but maybe those who don't, or to kind of like give a 30,000-foot play. What exactly is the mission of the Maui Chamber insofar as members' business and business in Maui generally goes?
Well, the Maui Chamber of Commerce is really about understanding the role that businesses play in our community in creating jobs and creating revenue that helps the county and state to expand services and creates a strong economic and vibrant community with great health and wellness programs and social services. So our role is to keep businesses strong and healthy during these times and at all times, and look at expanding in new economic opportunities. We also provide legislative advocacy to work with government and community partners to help people understand, you know, what our economy needs or what businesses need to survive, and look at programs and partnerships where we can work together to strengthen the economic health of our community and businesses to create that, you know, fabric and social services net that's needed for a thriving community and a healthy and sustainable community.
Pam, this is Tom. Good morning again.
Good morning.
I'm curious. I know that you do a lot of different programs throughout the year. We're going to talk about a couple of those in a moment. But just to kind of kick things off, can you tell us, as the head of the chamber, can you speak about how our small businesses have been affected by the wildfires on Maui? What have you been doing and what's been happening?
Oh, my gosh. It has, as everybody knows, this has been a whirlwind, much deeper and devastating, obviously, than COVID. So businesses, you know, we think of businesses and sometimes we think of them as entities, but of course businesses are made up of people. So, you know, we've had approximately 800 businesses directly impacted in Lahaina by the wildfires, and of course there were a number up in Kula as well. Nearly 50 boats in the harbor were destroyed, 2,200 housing units destroyed, placing workers and their families in temporary shelters. We're now seeing soaring unemployment. We've still got problems with reopening businesses in some areas due to drinking water not being available in areas like the Gateway that could operate if there was a solution to that. And we're finding, you know, the great thing is there's so many people contributing to these needs that are just huge. But what we need is now, we're at a point where what we need is just-in-time solutions. Some of the stuff that was brought in was overwhelming, a lot of things coming in, and we've gotten to that point where we're really organizing things well to meet the needs. Upcountry Kula, we're moving forward. I know you were talking about that. Drinking water is still not available in some areas, but it's impacting how businesses operate. And then, for those not directly impacted by the wildfire, what we're back to really is very much a COVID-like situation where businesses are devastated to the level that they are related to the visitor industry. So, again, we're seeing severe economic downturn with massive income losses and many businesses having to close, furlough, many, if not all, employees, depending on their reliance to the visitor industry. So we heard stories early on, and one of the stories we heard was about a family who lost their home, lost their business. Husband was employed with the business. Wife was employed in South Maui at a restaurant, and that restaurant's closed. So all of their income-earning opportunities right now are gone, so they're on unemployment. We're seeing so many people across the island, small businesses impacted, whether it's people who weren't in in the West Side area, but maybe did tours to Hana or snorkel and scuba tours. And many of these businesses, weddings and event cancellations, many of them also had retail stores along with them. A good example in Lahaina would be Atlanta Submarines. Atlanta Submarines not only had severe damage to the sub, they had damage to the dock, they had damage to the boat that took people to the dock and the sub. They had an office at the wharf, and that was destroyed. They had a storefront on Front Street, which was destroyed. So,
is that the yellow submarine that's out there? Are the Beatles still playing on that submarine? Because I've taken that submarine.
Me too.
That is a heck of a ride where you go underneath and you can see turtles and everything. It's like snorkeling, but inside. It's really a great ride.
It's really a great tour. It really is, and it brings up also another. Their employees lost their homes, and unfortunately, one of their employees passed.
Oh.
He was one that was very badly burned.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing
off of the tender.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that, Pam, to your point, you have what I call the ground zero businesses, the ones that have been like vaporized, where they have nothing left at all.
Yeah.
And their need is critical because many businesses, because of COVID, were only carrying general liability insurance and not covering contents. And many of them had taken out PPP loans during COVID, to which they're still paying back. Given that the only thing available from the government has been loans and they've lost everything, do you think that if there's immediate liquid business emergency relief, i.e. like an emergency stimulus business rescue package, that, is that something that we need, like the business need desperately? And if it doesn't come, like let's say it takes 9 months from now, how many of those businesses do you think will be able to come back at all, or do you think most of them will be gone at that point?
I'm going to tell you right now, and you're bringing up the $1 million question, right?
That's why we have you
Governor
on.
announced, Governor Green announced a while back that there were going to be these. He talked about $25 million in immediately available bridge loans, which would be grants. Actually, he said they'd be bridge grants.
Yeah, they were grants. Yeah, not loans.
Yeah, they're supposed to be
You
grants,
heard that
not
loud and
loans.
clear.
But there's some talk about making them. There's been some discussion about whether they would be considered, a loan if you moved off island or couldn't make it. But
the Santa Cruz model. Yes, the idea is to try to get these entities which made Lahaina to stick around, so that when Lahaina is rebuilt, they can move back in and you reestablish the character of the town, which is what drew everybody from around the world here to begin with. But again, there are some logistical issues that you brought up with that, insofar as some people may not be able to make that commitment. You know what I'm saying? And now they may be apprehensive to take a grant that could turn into a loan if in the future they decide, no, our business can't come back here. Is that one of the things that's being discussed insofar as to trying to get this thing to come together?
Yeah, and we're not one of the entities, and I don't know why, but I think they need as many entities as possible to get this money distributed as quickly
you guys should be
as
there,
possible.
because in my mind, we need to work with the Chamber and Liontown Action Committee and others to get a definitive list of businesses, but also to stratify them. You said there's about 800 ground zero businesses.
Yeah.
Okay, then you look at what are the businesses that are suffering the collateral damage right now from the fallout, for lack of a better word, as we talked about, they would be, obviously they need financial assistance too, right? So I guess working with you, we can identify these businesses and get aid to them quicker. Do you see yourself as a valuable partner in trying to cut through the red tape and doing that for businesses?
We have been, and we've been doing a lot of small projects in the get-go, but the people are crying out for that money now. And they
I agree.
It
it was yesterday. We needed a cash infusion yesterday.
Right, we do, because they're trying to pivot and make decisions. Some of those decisions, for some of them, not all, but some restaurants are looking at, and working with, there was a meeting held in Lahaina to get answers. People thought it was a secret meeting. It wasn't a secret meeting. It was a meeting of different industries who could possibly pivot quickly if they were able to get some help. And as you pointed out, the SBA loan offerings that they're offering, which is a loan, people don't want to take those loans because they still have SBA loans from COVID.
Exactly.
So
or they have other loans.
they have other loans as well. So there's worse. We're hearing of a lot of SBA denials of those, that you talk about, ground zero.
Yep.
We're hearing a lot of denials because the SBA says, well, we don't see your ability to repay.
Yep.
And if you're looking at their ability to repay based on what they did before, again, that opportunity right now isn't there. But what we need to look at, and Dickie Moon brought this up in one of the talk story sessions we had with the SBA, is anybody who survived COVID in Lahaina is an amazing business person, because that was a devastating experience. Rents are high in Lahaina. These people recovered and were working on paying off their loans and moving in a great direction. You have to look at the entrepreneurship and their history and track record of running businesses. But we've got people ready to pivot. Some of them are saying, look, I may not be able to run my restaurant right now, but can I convert to a food truck? And the county and Lane at the liquor department, we're looking at what kind of quick opportunities can we do. We may not be able to rebuild the whole harbor right now, but can we build some boat slips? What can we do in the short term that's not the full recovery effort, but what can we do in the short term?
Well, like in the case of the harbor, though, you can't. I mean, because you've got major stuff that needs to be, like major mega stuff. Actually, the opportunity is there to completely redesign the harbor to make it not only a world-class harbor that it should be, but also to create better flow of traffic and passengers to the area, which was a nightmare before. And I guess that's kind of one of the concerns of the boating community with visitor ones, is that we have at the harbor had so many problems before, and now there's a chance to redo everything in a way where it can be much more functional and cleaner and better operating, and the state seems to be like, no, we're just going to just rebuild what was there and slap it back, and voila, we're done. And so do you think that as we go forward, I use this as an example, do you think as we go forward we should be taking advantage of the fact that while we've lost so much insofar as facilities like this, there's a chance to rebuild them better than they were before?
Oh, I think you're seeing so many in the business community wanting to do that. But what hampers that is not being able to operate now. Can we, what can we do to mitigate? There was ideas for the boat operators on slip sharing and other things that weren't going to work. So we have to, in tandem, look at building back better and more resiliently. I mean, I think everybody's really unified around that message. But also getting these businesses back in business and finding new ways for them to operate that's outside of the box.
Pam, this is Tom. I'm curious. You talk. One of the things you do quite well is your advocacy that you do on behalf of our business community. I'm curious if you've adopted a position yet on the budget cuts that Mayor Bisson has recommended the council is describing. Have you had a chance to look at that and give your views on, or developing views on how those cuts might affect Maui County's ability to provide services?
Oh, excuse me, one moment. Thank you, Tom, for the question. It's a great question. The challenge right now, we are looking at the budget overall, with the proposed budget cuts that he's looking at, and we don't have a position on it yet, but we're currently working on it. And it comes into a broader context as well, in terms of, there has been a lot of investment in a lot of things over the recent years where we've made, very significant investments, and looking at how we balance some of those with some of the cuts that are being proposed. It's gonna take us a little while to come up with recommendations on that, and the challenge also is we know we have extreme revenue loss. So, until we get our economic engine getting back in gear.
Well, let's one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pam.
And I was going to just say, and right now. We all support economic diversity, but we need our economic engine in gear. And the challenge is there's so much worry that this is just going to be boom and it's going to happen overnight. And we are seeing an uptick since the October 8th reopening, but we're not seeing that boom. And and so, and we're not seeing businesses who were on ground zero get the funding they need right now to pivot as quickly as they could. So there's some things that we're focused on right now. Get that money out. Also, start that we're hearing lots of ideas, and the council's working on the community planning effort, and starting to hear what people want. But as we look at cuts, as we look at the revenue loss and how we're going to balance that, we also need to look at where is our plan moving forward. And I also contend that we need a strong housing plan. A lot of our community in West Maui is so, we in business and government know we're not going to displace them. They're not going to just get displaced and be put out on the street if they have to leave the hotels at some point. But they're wondering, where is our housing plan? And what is going to happen? And we're working with so many people who have options. I mean, we've got 6 easy options that are rapid development options, and then more long-term options. But we need that strong housing plan so people know they're going to be able to be put in temporary housing until we get that longer-term housing. And they need to know that solutions are available, and we need to find that land and start working with our development community to get stuff in place.
True, but the immediate need, which is hurting the visitor industry return and also is going to create future conflicts down the road, is establishing secure interim housing until this can happen. A lot of people who are displaced had their homes. They had homes.
Yeah.
They got to rebuild them, and they're not looking to move into a long-term new home, even especially if it's a temp one. So the question is that because we're using some of these resorts to house the fire victims, and that visitors are starting to book, and that because of the contracts not being renewed well off into the future, the concern is rooms will start being taken up by visitors, and then fire victims will be displaced because there'll be no more. They'll be basically the contracts won't be rebooked in time to preserve the room space that they already have. And so, what does the chamber see in working with Director Tokioka and others and trying to establish some kind of a more dignified, stable interim housing solution? Because all of these things we talk about are going to take time. And I guess, is that something that's being discussed? Because that obviously not only hinders the return of visitors, but now you're setting up a visitor-resident conflict again in this situation.
Absolutely. And let me just say, when I talk about some of these solutions, we've got solutions because there have been a number of people, including the Chamber, who have been working on housing solutions pre-fires, and the issue was always where were we going to put them. But housing solutions that can be configured to different sizes. Some of the solutions might only work for a family of 4 that can be put up quickly. And I'm talking about houses that can be put up in a week. These are the
prefabs.
kinds of
Are you talking about modular prefabs and perhaps some of these things like SIPS, where they do an integrated village system of housing like that?
Yeah, but housing that's housing with where they can have a kitchen, they can cook, where they have bathrooms, where they're together, they can configure multiple bedrooms based on family size and the need. And some of them, yes, we have that down to container homes and tiny homes and things. But these are things that are available. Many modular homes that are hurricane, we want them to know they're safe. I mean, there's things that are available right now that could be brought on island very quickly if we had a plan in a matter of weeks and start building houses in a matter of days. And people saw those black boxes in Kahului. We got a lot of calls. People were very afraid, not sure what that was. That was a program by the church who owned their own land and and the Family Life Center has been addressing housing for a long time. So that was a program that they're doing, and it scared some people. But there's a lot of different solutions, and I think, and they're not going to look the way that people saw them. So those solutions, while they may scare some, there's different ways to configure those and do things with those.
True. I think the fear of people driving by and there was no announcement of what it was
right.
That, okay, you lost your home, you're going to be shoved into a trailer and live right there like on display for everybody on the side of the highway. But, it was an attempt by the church to try to address, the homeless population, the challenges.
Yeah.
But it brings up the. I think a lot of this fear and angst is driven around the fact in other places in the country where you've had these kinds of disasters, people ended up in FEMA trailers temporarily for years and years, and
Right.
they're absolutely horrid. And so the fact is that one of the things that again, this goes back to many people who worked in the campfire in California, others, and said what Maui was lucky to have the hotels and timeshares there. Because
Absolutely.
in that fire, people lived out of their cars in Motel 6s and got spread out everywhere for months, and those FEMA trailers for months and months and months. But then the question is, if this is going to be our pathway for a stable, dignified interim solution, then how do we ensure that that remains while we expeditiously do the things that you're talking about in providing temporary housing that have kitchens and the other kinds of things that families can use?
Absolutely. And one of the things that we were told by FEMA is, some of this is also just messaging, and it was getting people registered, is that the housing was available for a period of time, but then people needed to reconnect with FEMA. Their thought was, knowing that some people were moving out with family and friends and, not knowing how stable or long-term some of that those options were, that people sort of needed to re-register with FEMA again, and that would continue some of the flow, re-register with Red Cross again. So we've had some, communication difficulties. I was told that FEMA can take people into February, that they just have to be registered and they can have housing till February. And then again, as we work towards the February deadline, we're constantly revisiting. And again, the Chamber's involved in all of these discussions. During COVID, a lot of these discussions were really centered around the social services network. We worked on the business side, and the social service agencies worked on the social service side. But given the magnitude of this fire, this is now something that we're actively involved in and looking at these housing solutions. I think, honestly, that literally within 2 months, if we find the land, and whether the land does or doesn't have access to water, sewer, power, comm, there are above-ground solutions that can be deployed. And I'm talking to people within 2 months can have units up. So there are solutions, but
has there been discussions with the large landowners in the area, vis-a-vis Kaanapali 2020 or some of the others, to identify parcels that could be
yes. But a lot of those discussions are about sales, so people are also looking at what land is available through the county and state, what land is available maybe through DHHL, or
nearly all state lands, crown lands. So that's why it's always been looked at the county lands being the more, the better choice to try to stage affordable housing on. And so, what is the discussion with the county? Do they have plats or maps of proposed county areas where they're looking to put some of these modular homes, or is what I guess is the
we have the same issue with the county and the state is both know parcels. So the question is getting those maps and really getting a strong assessment of what's available and how quickly it can be done. Some people are looking at private land. But the key thing is, and I understand the mayor and his team are working on sort of some standards for what they're looking at for these houses. And, for these temporary houses. Again, these are temporary to get us, again, back to rebuilding.
Pam, this is Tom.
Talk about that more.
I just read a proposal for tiny homes, which have all of the facilities and the kitchens and the whole everything that people need, and the bathrooms and what have you. And this would be a group of tiny homes. It would be like 9 of them in kind of like a tiny home community be put together. That can be put together very quickly. I think your challenge is going to be that people are afraid that what was billed as temporary can become like very, very long-range temporary. It could be years. And then how do you maintain these facilities that were designed to be temporary? I'm reminded of the fact that during World War II, when the federal government needed to have additional office space to run the war, they built all of these temporary office buildings on the mall. And they built them in the 1940s. And they weren't taken down until the Kennedy administration. finally took down and opened them all up and moved these things. So when the government says temporary, I think you have to be real careful
Yes.
what they're
Yes.
talking about, because temporary for the federal government could be 25 years.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I'll
the
tell
case
you-
in both Katrina, Campfire, and Andrew, where all the same things. Temporary became years.
Yeah,
And that's the
again,
concern.
Well, and it's a valid concern, although in my realm, again, and I'm working with, again, the business community. So the business community operates much faster than that, and the business community sees these opportunities differently. So, but you're right, this is going to rely heavily. And FEMA and others are often saying, look, we're here to serve at the will of the county and the state. We're here to respond to their needs and their urgencies and their policies. So what we keep hearing is two things. One, in the development community is saying, once we identify land for these temporary housing, while we allow people to, and they're, again, is it 12, 18 months, 24 months? How long is it going to take to remediate the land until people are ready to build back their homes? We're looking at sheltering people in temporary housing until that point, and then those lands that were used for temporary could then be reconsidered for expanded workforce housing and something more permanent. And then temporary could then have other uses, because we still had a large homeless population, a large population with drug and alcohol addictions or mental illness that we have a shortage of housing on. So we're sort of looking at it differently. But my biggest worry right now, and again, at the end of the day, how long that stays and to what degree, how quickly we move, is going to come down to, that's not going to be in the Chamber's control. That's going to come down to county, state, and federal policy.
Well, yes, and this is why the planning is so important. One other X factor that's moving out there like a tsunami wave is the waves and waves of construction workers that are going to be showing up. And you're going to have literally, I would think, thousands of construction workers coming in, and they're going to be looking for anything that's not tied down to house their workers in while they're doing all of this activity. And so the question is then becomes, do they now put an even bigger strain on capacity of available housing? And could the temporary modular tiny homes you speak of, could that be a way to try to house some of the large construction workforces expected to come in here?
We need everything and. I mean, we're gonna need tent villages. I think that people now we've seen people deployed in tents in Kahului. Again, we want to see the best housing and the housing options first go to those displaced by the fires, right? And we have options. And the other thing is, a lot of people were talking about
how
family
do you
doesn't
get
want
them
to be
into those
split
options?
into tiny
because
homes.
right now you have to self-finance everything. So the big concern from people is we don't have the funds to be able to go out and or make our own arrangements, especially since rental prices have gone up. So do you think there needs to be more active involvement in the rental market to preserve that kind of housing and allocate the limited resources that we have now?
I think everybody is going to be looking at new solutions, and the answer is I think we're going to have to put all solutions on the table. But we also know that FEMA's got a responsibility to help with housing. And so, there's funding available to help with housing. The question is,
FEMA will turn around and they'll say where the county is the tip of the spear, the state and the county is under 127 Alpha-5, the tip of the spear. We're just the back support. So when they need something, we're ready to fulfill that need, but they need to move first. Do you think that then, that it's in the county's best interest to try to move as quickly as possible so they can continue to get that active FEMA support as is needed?
Oh, absolutely. And I keep hearing, that we're losing some benefits that there's things that we just need to be asking for that haven't been asked for yet. And again, some of that, and some of it's a communication issue or maybe a language barrier. And I'm saying to everybody and their brother, if somebody comes to you and seeks help, one of the things, because FEMA, SBA, Red Cross, and all of them have interpreters, but don't wait for somebody to ask you for an interpreter, offer it right away because they're uncomfortable, or they may be nodding like they know, but they don't know.
Exactly. Real quickly, one last question I'd like to throw in there, Pam. One of the things talked about has been this, cash emergency fund, this rescue fund, stimulus fund. It's been nicknamed emergency stimulus fund because this kind of liquidity in the area will be a multiplier effect. People will go out and spend the money on things that they, haven't been able to get because they've had no money for 2 months, or go out to that local restaurant or business to finally have a meal out, which they couldn't afford at all for 2 months. Do you think that besides helping to stabilize businesses, give them a lifeline, and residents, that this kind of package could also be an economic, stimulator or bridge until the tourists come back? And given we're only going to be looking at 3% occupancy potentially for the next couple of months or thereabouts, do you think that's another thing that
we saw
makes
that
this
with
thing
that
idea more
restaurant
valuable?
card? Yeah, we saw that with different cards that people had Visa cards that they could spend in the local community. We saw it with the restaurant card during COVID. It definitely helps, and we know from a lot of businesses in the restaurant arena that really helped them and keep them back, to a certain degree, and helped improve their reopening. So we know those kinds of packages help. We need to get the money out to urgently help our devastated businesses pivot. There are ways they could maybe rent other space, then they can convert their business to online. We need to help, those in the boating industry look at some solutions. Otherwise, they're dead in the water, literally, until we get harbors back and slips back. So we've got to find some new ways to do things. But I think the key is, and I don't want to lose, of course, when we talk about building back better, we all know that we're overly dependent on the visitor industry. Pre-COVID, there was economic diversification talks. During COVID, there were extreme economic diversification talks. Those need to continue. We're going to have to make hard investments. That's why looking at cuts and
well, we also
revenue
need to look at the
important.
fact we've backed ourselves into a corner with the visitor. We've doubled down on luxury, high-end, opulent visitors. And that market is even more tenuous because when people come to a luxury, high-end market and are paying thousands of dollars a day, they expect to see a society around them that reflects that. And when they see a society where the basic needs aren't even being met and is falling behind, it's really hard to stand up that kind of luxury tourism economy en masse. So I guess you think, so one of the things maybe, that's one of the things we look at both on diversification. Would you say we also have to look at diversification within the visitor industry itself?
Well, I still think I'll tell you this. I do still think there's a lot of economic room for diversification within the industry. And of course, I also want to see broader diversification. But, for example, medical tourism is something we were talking for 20 years
So
and still very applicable today, right? So we have done a great job of leveraging the visitor industry to create many different industries. The problem now, though, is without the visitors, restaurant, retail, activities, weddings, big corporate events cancel when they hear governor or mayor say you can't come for a period of time, right? There's legalities to the contracts where they can back out even if the message is later changed. But we did a great job of leveraging our visitor industry. Is there more that we can do? Absolutely. I mean, back in the days, 20 plus years ago at Maui Economic Development Board, we still had many other ways to leverage the visitor industry. But we also need to understand that when we have these kinds of emergencies or economic downturns where people aren't coming, we don't have the resident population to sustain those industries by ourselves.
Pam, this is Tom. We've got about a minute left in this segment, and I'm just wondering, in using that time, is there any message that you would like to deliver to our listeners coming from the Chamber, maybe a message of hope or looking over the horizon as we conclude this segment?
We are, thank you, Tom, and of course we are a very resilient community, and we have phenomenal business people and entrepreneurs. So we will be rebuilding, and we will be getting our visitor industry back, and we will be creating, it won't be the same. It's going to be different, but we're going to work on that and economic development. And for those who want to help, who want to adopt a business for recovery, who want to put their money in helping businesses reestablish. The Chamber has a fund where we are specifically doing that. We do have a foundation, and you can find out more about how you can make a donation at MauiChamber.com. Our money goes specifically to helping impacted businesses with a priority, first and foremost, on serving those who have been devastated by the wildfires first. So
Ground Zero.
we are raising funds to do that, and we are not taking any percentage fee off of this. All money, 100% of your money, will go directly towards helping impacted businesses.
If I didn't have the phone under my chin, I'd be clapping right now. And I really glad to hear that, and I hope government recognizes the model that you've developed and will work with you to deliver more resources through the channel streams that you've created with the members and the other businesses in the community. So I thank you for that, man.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. The need is great. We're going to need, and it's long term. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So we ask people to give, and even on the socials. I mean, there's so much money for social services right now, but even on the social services side, you know, we're gonna be doing this for a long time. So any way people can give is greatly appreciated. And just know that what we're going to be needing as we get closer down the road and we start moving into housing and other things, the needs are going to change. Cash is always helpful because it allows our community to pivot quickly to buy what we need versus waiting for supplies to come in. But all things are going to be needed, but we need it sort of just in time. And we need to get a strong list that's cohesive, put together on what those needs are and how people can contribute moving forward when we need it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think real quickly, and I'll leave it this, with the holidays coming up, I think there's a great chance for the Chamber, County, and others to really market Made in Maui. I mean, a lot of people are going to want to buy Maui for Christmas this year to support the community, and a lot of our companies that export, you know, have products like that could really see a huge boost, you know, in that kind of, you know, a thing of the people wanting to support Maui. So, I'm looking forward to what the Chamber is doing to work with that group, especially because I think that's one of those pivot areas that you discussed earlier.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. November 3rd and 4th is the Made in Maui County Festival. Made in Maui County Festival has so many businesses from Lahaina. Not all are ready to participate this year. Many who were devastated and lost everything begged us and said, we hope you're doing it. We said, we are. We understand how important this is to you and others. Many companies who weren't in Lahaina but sold in Lahaina were impacted. So November 3rd and 4th at the Maui Arts and Cultural System, but we're also really trying to expand that buyer's market, and in online audiences I have with mainland companies, we let retailers know far and wide, if you are a wholesaler or a distributor, you should want amazing products from Maui made by local hands and hearts in your stores. And we're encouraging expanded buyer audience to this year's show, as well as welcoming our community who cherishes this event. Again at the MAC with amazing food trucks, as well as vendors who make quality products that people cherish for the holidays. You're going to have that opportunity, and we encourage you to join us, as well as spread the word to friends and family. Let them know that this is a great opportunity, and there'll be also opportunities for people abroad to shop online.
Senator, we're getting a call from the engineer that we have to wrap up this segment. We want to thank Pam for all that she's doing in the Chamber. A great interview, and please be sure and have sumo dogs at the...
I think you'll find a way to plug that in.
I'm always looking for sumo dogs, all right? But thank you, Pam, and Senator. It's a great interview, and now we're going to move on and talk about one or two other subjects.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye. Why do they always laugh when I ask for sumo dogs? I don't.
You find a way to bring it up in every conversation. I don't know how we end up there, but we do.
Senator, we got about 3 minutes left. There's a Lahaina Luna homecoming. I think you wanted to mention Saturday, October 14th. Is that correct? At the War Memorial Stadium.
That is correct. Saturday, October 14th. This Saturday, War Memorial Stadium will be the Lahaina Luna football team's homecoming game. It's kind of, heavy heart that we couldn't, have it as we envisioned it at our home stadium, the EMU. But, it's going to go on. We're encouraging everybody to basically create a red wave and wear red. Start during the day, show your aloha for West Maui. It'll be a great game. We televised live, shown statewide on Spectrum, Oceanic Cable. So if you can't make it,
You'll be channel OC16 will be broadcasting.
OC16, correct. So if you can't make it, it'll be on TV. It's going to be a huge, I think, a celebration to mark our march forward. And what a better way to do it without these brave kids who suffered through so much themselves, putting it aside to work as a team. And this is the kind of hope and inspiration they're going to be bringing to the community. So I'm super excited about it.
And very quickly, we have about 2 minutes left. Very quickly, don't forget the Kihei Charter School is having Kokua for Lahaina on October 21st. A great program. They're going to be having all kinds of entertainment and food and general admission. So if you'd like to go to that, just look up the telephone number for the Kihei Charter School. It's online, and that's October 21st. Senator, very quickly, how can the audience contact you with questions or concerns? We've got about 30 seconds left.
Real quickly, I just want to give a shout-out, a thank you to the Kihei Charter School. They've been helping some of the parents over here, and for South Maui in general. They've been such good friends and strong neighbors, and we in West Maui can't thank them enough, and that's why I'm so proud to have everybody in District 6. You can get a hold of me, District 6, 808-586-6070 is my office number. I have an amazing staff that's there to help you with your needs or questions. We can't promise 100% success, but we're willing to go to bat and try to see if we can help. The email is sendmckelvey, one word, at capital.tol.hawaii spelled out.gov. And, of course, Facebook, Instagram, at sendmckelvey.
And we want to remind our listeners, be sure to tune in to Capital Connection every Wednesday at 7 a.m. right here on KAOI 1110 a.m. and affiliated FM stations. Senator, aloha. Have a great day.